guys have me cornered. You know, like,
Oh, that'd be
those
cool.
are the most,
Yes, right.
You just opened the show.
That was a back room.
You did. I started it.
Here we are. What about this idea?
What about this idea? Jumping right in.
We just-
Hong Kong, some
I know,
dark
man.
back
You got to
room
go
in
with
Hong
the
Kong.
scandal, don't you?
yeah,
Exactly.
get everybody interested off the top. So.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, hello. Who's filming me?
I don't know.
They're all over the place. It's all good. We're in the new studio.
We are in the new studio. We've got a new wall to work with.
New walls, no accoutrements.
Send in your ideas. Where's my camera? There's my camera. Send in your ideas for our blank walls.
Yeah, we're gonna have
Pot plant.
Pot
Right-
plant. That's
right
what
here.
Josh wants to bring a pot plant. I love that.
yeah. I mean,
You don't have
it's
a plant?
legal.
It's a home. You guys it's homegrown.
Yeah,
You know, you
it's
guys-
legal. I mean,
totally
I don't want to
legal.
kill it,
Yeah.
and I learned all about the different flowering, like when they do it, and some of them are light based, and some of them are time based, and all this.
Oh yeah. I've talked to many a grower.
Yeah, I've learned this
Growers,
stuff.
there's a lot of processes, and most growers are very proud of their process.
Of course.
That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
Is there one standard? Oh, wait, we should really just say who we're talking to, should
Yeah,
we?
so let's do that. So hi everyone. Thanks for joining us again on What About This Idea. We have Josh Maslowski, that's correct, right?
Maslowski, yes.
Maslowski. Of Stigma Cannabis.
Stigma Cannabis today, and historically been kind of in the business entrepreneurship world
Yeah.
for about 20 years now.
Okay. I mean, that's why we thought you'd be good on this show. I mean, we do have the Full Spectrum show, which you're also going to do an episode of,
Yes.
and Calandra and Lance will get you deeper into the
weeds.
weed.
Oh my God, you guys are so funny. Stop
I am
it.
a dad. My dad jokes. Crush.
How old are your
You're,
kids
you're
again?
on it.
Yeah, my 13-year-old
13
twin daughters, they love
Yeah.
my jokes. Yeah.
Do they? Okay. I was going to say, wow.
No, they
That's
don't.
why you do them, right?
Yeah.
Like just to get that face. Like, ugh, Dad, ew.
I still, my 8-year-old still loves them. Everything's still funny to
Yeah,
the
you got
8-year-old.
a few more years.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, I have two boys. They're 17 and 15. They hate everything I say.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But anyway, yeah, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you were in Hong Kong in a back room. That's where we started. I
yes.
just want to make sure we don't miss anything.
I have been to Hong Kong many a time. That was in my my previous kind of business life of big box electronics and video games and iPhones.
Would that be with a big box electronic partner that we have here in Minnesota?
It might be. It
Yeah,
might
okay.
be. Big best box. Yeah.
I know
Well,
exactly.
they don't sponsor us, so we're not going to say
That's
their
right.
name.
No.
That's right.
That's right. Not
Yeah.
yet.
Exactly. Yeah. No. So spent a lot of time in Hong Kong. Actually, it's a beautiful town. If you want to kind of feel that energy, it's got that energy of say New York
I've heard
City.
that.
And
I haven't been. Have you been?
No.
I haven't been to
China,
doing a little more. I've been to India a lot, but I haven't been anywhere beyond there, and
Yeah.
I haven't done anything else in Asia.
That's what I mean. In India, I assume you were in a town of at least 5, 10, 15 million people at some point. and-
Aren't all their towns?
Exactly.
Pretty densely
Yeah.
packed from
Yeah.
right here.
I was with a group. The first time I went was 3.5 weeks. I was there for 3.5 weeks, and it's quite a culture shock. And then, just it wears on you the juxtaposition between middle class and poor. And I don't even know if I saw any rich people, to be honest. Like middle class and poor. And then the variety of, coming from that old caste system, it really got it in me. But before that, I just found the whole country so incredibly beautiful, and just their belief systems and their way of being really beautiful. But it was the whole juxtaposition
Then you got
between that and that,
ruined
and
by
then
that?
then these nomad communities that go around, like we went and visited Honeywell when we were there. Okay. And it was like, there's Honeywell, beautifully contoured yards and building, and right next door is a giant nomad group of people, community that's just moved into the empty space in between. Mm-hmm. And a dirt road with someone roasting nuts in the front. And it's like, that's the whole country.
Yeah. No, that
amazing,
reminds,
amazing.
No, it's a great experience, and I'm happy to have been able to witness, and experience a lot of that around China mostly, with all those travels. And, you know, it reminds me of, in China, like a small town is 3 million people.
Right.
Okay. And when they would be developing like a town with construction and commercial kind of development, they would do one side of the street at a time. So you're driving down the street, and the right side you got all the new modern buildings, and unfortunately a few KFCs and some McDonald's as well. And then on the other side you have
strange.
It is. That's speaking
abroad
of
and finding that
juxtapositions.
stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Then on the other side you had something that might have been a 500-year-old kind of development, right? More shacks and kind of small.
Right, shanty.
Yeah, and so that's just you're kind
And
of
that
looking,
side's getting dozed at some point. And
yeah,
turned
most
into the other
likely
side?
it's happening. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it, you know, but it's funny they just tackle one side at a time. In my experience over there, but
That's funny because I had done a lot of international travel, and then I had a company where I did more domestic travel as well, and we did some work in Arkansas, Pine something, Arkansas, and I realized that I have not been in communities like that for a long time, and there's quite a juxtaposition down there as well. And I fell in love with the beauty again of the place, and then just the clinging of maybe some racial tension still alive.
It's different down there, isn't it?
amazing. Yeah, so you know we've got it here too.
yeah, definitely. And when you can kind of look at that international comparison with like the Asian countries, and then ideally you learn from that. And then when we're over here and you have sympathy, compassion for maybe rural people that feel like they're getting left behind.
Exactly,
Like that,
right?
So,
The rural people who feed the world, man.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
And we're talking we as in like the royal we. We are supposed to learn from that? Like, are we learning from anything?
I know, right?
This is maybe too big of a question for this show.
Yeah, when I
Can we look at the world? And,
yeah, exactly. We, for that context, was I guess myself, and
Okay.
I do my best as far as trying to learn and understand. You know, I mean, we go deep if we want. You should see the algorithm on my YouTube podcast structure, but
yeah,
when it comes to like business and all my business was able to provide me so far a lot of experience with different types of people, right?
Yeah.
From Europe to Asia to Arkansas. Speaking of driving in to Bentonville to go to Walmart back in the day when I was selling video games to them, right?
Yeah,
And you drive through,
exactly. The wall city.
the pastures and
Yeah.
So yeah, all those experiences, I think you got to kind of try to learn. I think we're here to learn, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, learn
Well,
as a human being. Like that's one of the key reasons I think we're here.
Oh, we've
And-
talked about this before on the show.
Well, there
Yeah.
we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I
learning.
agree. And there's this guy named Mike Dooley who does the universe. He sends a daily universe thing, and he just wrote a book about that we are in an awakening stage. That there's enough of us learning. I don't know if I totally believe in it, right?
Well, you don't have to. It's
so I'm
someone's
just saying,
idea.
But it was enlightening to say, because in a sense we start to think we have gone absolutely bonkers. We're going down the Mad Max route right now with all the
it feels like it at
civil
times.
unrest and the elections and all
Global.
of that, right? So it was a nice perspective change. She said there's enough people that are acting present, being present and learning and being empathetic, that it's actually a much better world than it has been, even though it doesn't seem like it.
I would agree with that based on my algorithm of podcasts that I referenced, and there is potentially a universal consciousness that exists. I think that's a thing, but then we collectively, I think, can kind of help move the needle on what that means. What that is. Evolving our consciousness, I think, is actually how I would define what we're here to do.
I totally agree. And it has to be collective, but it has to start individually.
Yeah, that's what I'm continuing to try to wrap my brain around how I look at that. And some of this is quantum physics, which is dramatically
Dance of the Woolly Masters. Did you read that?
No,
I'm going to bring that up. I never brought that up.
Okay,
That's an amazing but older book about physics, and ends up trying to describe the different dimensions. So it goes from physics to God, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, and God can be a term that's I've learned kind of growing up in a world where space in the Midwest in the United States, as I should specify that, where kind of like Christianity is your thing and your reason for the season, and I love the community around that. My wife's actually a youth pastor at a church.
Okay.
So she runs kind of all the youth programs, and just to see the energy, speaking of, in the community around that is great. I was always stuck with kind of more of the high level, like very, I've evolved from, I think, needing that material science or that guaranteed like physical proof to, I believe there's...
You mean guaranteed physical proof of there being something beyond what we know?
Yeah, like a higher being or a God, or questioning all of the Christianity stuff, right? I'm not, most entrepreneurs, I hope, are like question things. I think that I would make that assumption. It's one of the reasons I think
that's a fair assumption.
I think it's kind of one of the reasons we get into what we do alone ourselves, to start. But with that, I've evolved that, the more I've learned, the more I've listened, to not necessarily needing that physical proof or data, because I've resided in the fact that I believe that human beings just don't know, and I think we're actually designed not to know, because nobody really knows, right?
It's been a common theme lately for me.
But to believe in something that we can't see is now something that I actually am migrating towards, versus I need to see it and touch it and feel it.
Yeah, me too. I was the same way.
I believe it or whatever. But,
I was raised Catholic, right? Yeah. And so I remember, and my dad was a super logical. He was an accountant, right? And so he taught me to be very logical, and they wanted me to also be a believer in the Catholic Church. And it was like, okay, so I started to apply that logic to the Catholic Church, and it was like asking questions. And then I'm like, well, why do we know this happened? Why do we know this happened? And then finally they would say, well, you just have to have faith. I'm like, that's not logical.
Faith doesn't just do, that doesn't solve anything. Yeah.
But now I'm seeing what that means as a energy piece, and actually this wraps back around into being an entrepreneur, because the more you really have faith in your own being and what you can do and where you're going, that's as much a faith as anything, right? So if you have faith in yourself, that's about the same as having faith.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is. You can almost feel how helpful it is too.
Yeah.
Like the days where you don't have so much faith in yourself, and then things aren't going as well or something, and then you start to trust your vision and know that you've got, I'm going to succeed, and then you start succeeding.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, to me, like what you said, the faith is maybe the thing that gets you to jump off the dock into the water. Mm-hmm. Then when you're in the water, it's kind of where you were saying there, and the way I look at that is the phrase I use is trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That means enjoy the process. Mm-hmm. Side note, your dopamine release is actually on the hike up to the top of the mountain, but when you get there, your dopamine release stops.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you got to enjoy the process.
Well,
otherwise,
and sometimes the process is you failing.
Exactly.
Well, that's part of the process. Yeah.
When you get to the top and suddenly you don't have the dopamine, you're like, what the hell? How did I get up here?
Yeah, exactly. So,
well, let's start from the beginning, though, because you mentioned you came from a small town. So where'd you grow up?
I came from North Dakota, which is a small state for sure. I grew up in Bismarck, which is a city in North Dakota.
That's a big town in North Dakota.
But I liken it to like a suburb around Minneapolis without Minneapolis. It was like growing up in Bloomington.
Yeah.
Really, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Like my high school football team, I had guys my offensive linemen were all farmers that would drive 20, 40 minutes,
for sure.
have the shotgun in the back of the truck to go shoot pheasants after practice and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there was that aspect of it. But I grew up in Bismarck, and it was a blessing. I had a great upbringing. It was a little bit Leave It to Beaver-ish, in a way, but at the same time, that allowed you to really grow deep relationships, and I think that's probably one of the key things I took. I still have best friends today from second grade, from my fifth grade traveling basketball team, things like that.
Yeah,
and so that's what that really was. One of the key things I think about growing up in Bismarck was the relationships that I was able to build. And then you also learn how to work hard and kind of head down, and that kind of that all was in my DNA.
How many people were there in Bismarck when you were?
About 50,000 or so. Yeah, and so at the same time, it also allows you to, in my case, perform at a high level in athletics, which is also a big part of my background, which is captain of the basketball team and the football team and baseball.
Oh.
So I wanted to be like a professional athlete.
Yeah.
At a minimum, I wanted to go play Division I college, probably baseball.
Did you make that?
And then I ended up ruining my shoulder in my high school.
Okay.
So I was saying earlier, luckily my mom was very good about making sure I did my schoolwork. And so I was also got straight A's in school. And so that saved me for kind of the long term, which again,
Right, because sports can only,
it's only going to last you so long. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
and getting to that elite level is like...
it's very difficult, yeah. So I joke, like, instead of riding the bus in some minor league baseball system somewhere, I got to get a head start in business and entrepreneurship is really what happened. So I pivoted from Bismarck in that plan to maybe go play baseball or something in college, to then just getting out of North Dakota. I moved to Minneapolis. And,
from the big
goals.
city in North Dakota
to the big city.
The big city here in the upper Midwest.
Yeah.
I mean, not to, Minneapolis is a plenty large city, but it's also like, you mentioned a small town and China's 3 million.
Yeah,
That's like us here.
Suddenly we feel small. Yeah.
And when you do think about Minneapolis, when you start to think about like all the connections and how you're at places meeting people that I'm connected to over here and stuff, it really isn't that big of a town.
It's not that big of a town.
No,
I've lived here now since 1999, so 25 years.
Okay.
And
That's about the length of time I've been here
okay,
too.
I mean, you start seeing the same similar faces.
Yeah.
It all comes around, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
So I'm a gopher. Just decided to go to the University of Minnesota and got my business degree there. Carlson School of Management, shout out.
Okay.
And my first job I took in the video game industry because I could wear shorts and flip-flops to work.
Sure.
So that was the rest is history.
Wow,
really.
that was revolutionary back in the day, honestly.
Yeah. It was great. It was the founder and owner of that company was he was a personality like a lot of founders are. He had a big personality, and he would wear his own cutoff T-shirts to like a meeting with the Target buyers or something like that, right? Where they're all dressed up.
You can get away with that, though, if you're that guy.
If it's his own company, he'd be wearing shorts or whatever. But but with that, I got great experience, and that's actually what led me into going to China thereafter, where I got recruited out of there to go work for a firm downtown in Minneapolis, actually, in Butler Square, very similar to this space here, where we were one of the top, probably the best rep firm in town. If there's a company in the world that wanted to sell product into Target or Best Buy, you'd come through our group.
Okay.
Right. So I got to, at age 24, I got to see the world's finest. At that point in time, it was video games. Bluetooth speakers were just kind of starting.
Okay.
And then we were the only group in the country that had a wireless guitar for the Guitar Hero game.
Oh,
Yeah.
very cool.
You were kind of a gatekeeper for all of the new products.
Correct. And so, my whole life, it was like the launch of the PlayStation at the time 2, and then PlayStation 3. And then Xbox had just launched the very first console. And I was involved with all those product launches.
Yeah.
At that time in the marketing department, I was more product and marketing. And then when I got recruited to go to that second firm downtown to do more of the kind of sales rep stuff, that's when we were actually manufacturing our own stuff in China too.
Okay.
And so that's where we were making the guitars, and I was working with creative brand kind of managers. The wireless guitars.
Really?
Figured out how to use like the car paint job, water transfer paint to do designs on these guitars.
Yeah.
So we did,
Cool.
like an acoustic one, and we did a fancy like the Budokan, we called it, out of the Japan's #1 music venues called the Budokan.
Okay.
So we named our product the Budokan. It was all fancy, like color coded and whatnot. Anyway, because of that, I got to fly all over the country.
You're so cool.
Yeah, I was going from Fry's Electronics on the West Coast in California to Toys R Us in New Jersey, down to Bentonville, Arkansas to Walmart, and then obviously Target.
How many
Best
of
Buy.
these? I mean, and that entire industry has changed so much.
It has,
Like a lot of those places are
I saw Circuit City go out. And Toys R
don't
Us,
exist anymore, or are complete dinosaurs and way different than they used to be.
Yeah, for sure. It's a combination of technology and advancement.
Yeah.
And effing Amazon. That's what all the old traditional retailers would say.
Effing Amazon.
That's what the
Amazon.
traditional retailers
Also
would say.
not a sponsor.
Also, so you can say the full actual word.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I didn't know if we were.
I'm not sure. Reach out,
PG.
We're not going to mention any other companies, but effing Amazon.
They already own everything.
I said that on behalf of all of the buyers I've ever worked with at Best Buy or
I'm
Target.
sure.
All right, good for you. They're all cheering you on right now.
I think
for
so.
sure.
Yeah, they would all probably echo that.
That's such a
that
different
tone.
world than anything I know. This corporate world.
Yeah, it is.
Did
yeah.
did you love it?
I did. I liked it. I liked it, and then I loved it. I only liked it those first few years when I was working for somebody else. Mm-hmm. But then I loved it when we decided, like most American entrepreneurs, we learned something from a company that was either too expensive, too inefficient, et cetera, and we decided just to start our own and just do it ourselves. So that was the first decision at age about 26 years old, I think.
Wow.
I decided to just, I was deathly afraid of whether it's the real person that I've seen and know in this example or something you'd see on TV, where I didn't want to be the 50-year-old that was just pissed about his job and like
That's always scared me
30
too.
years at IBM and then they screwed me at the end, or something. Like I never wanted to feel that way. And so, and then what you mentioned earlier, the faith, you could also use since I guess sports betting is fine now, everybody's fine with betting now.
Is it
every
back?
commercial you see, as a person who watches football games.
I was going to say, if you're
like-
watching a lot of sports.
Yeah, but-
Yeah, like they're back legal.
About 7 years ago, they legalized, they more legalized online gambling.
Yeah.
And so there's a company down here, do you know Sport Radar down here? They make and sell sports data. They're actually a European-based company, but they have a big production area here in Minneapolis.
Data.
Yep, and so originally all their data used to go to media outlets, right? And they still have a huge presence in media outlets here. Mm-hmm. But now there's a whole huge market of selling data.
But they shut it off abruptly at one point too, right? Like it went illegal, online betting, for at least a little while.
It was,
and then it came back.
Yeah, in Minnesota, it's still fighting it, but nationwide, there's probably 35, many states that are legal. So that's why on CBS or NBC, you're watching a football game and all you see is sports. Thanks for the kids.
Yep.
Get hooked
for
on
the kids.
It's got to be good for you.
Yeah. So I'll use a betting analogy, which is I decided to bet on myself at age about 20.
That's amazing. Did you have partners when you went?
Yeah. So there's two of us. We were kind of both running the product division, and that was super helpful, to be honest. So
you made products.
We were
And what
product
were those
guys,
products?
and then those were video game products.
Okay.
We were the first direct manufacturer for Best Buy when they decided to make all their own branded video game accessories and HDMI cables, chargers, and headsets.
Nice.
So we were the.
Is that what propelled them ahead of Circuit City and eventually led them to
that
win?
made them a lot of that. That's the move. Yeah, that's where you can make a lot of more margin.
That's true in all retail, basically. You start your own branded version of it, and you make a boatload off that.
The quick story on the Best Buy Circuit City situation, because those were the two top competitors. The joke in our industry historically was you had to drive. Best Buy got the best real estate. You had to drive by a Best Buy in the corner to get to a Circuit City. So I think a part of the problem had to do with that
Location,
Yeah.
according to your mom, right?
Correct. Yes, real estate.
Real estate.
Always.
So Best Buy had the best real estate, so that was a big part of it, and probably the main reason why Best Buy is still around. Also, I think in industries that shrink over time and consolidate, and or product lines like THC is a new thing, right? With the beverages, there's 100 brands now. There's only going to be 10 in the end.
Yeah.
There's only going to be 10 in the end, and there's only going to be X amount of retailers that can sell you a receiver.
You can't fill the whole liquor store just with all of the brands, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how do you sell it all?
Yeah, it's the
Okay, so
inefficient
here's a
piece.
question for you. So those are kind of, when you would go overseas to have these manufactured specifically for, say, Best Buy or another company, is the same manufacturer making it for other companies as well? I mean, is it the same thing?
I mean, yes.
I get it. Yeah.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, ultimately, usually there's multiple different manufacturing
Right.
facilities, but the way that we would operate, and the way I look at even what we're doing today making product, is that if you want to be a product maker or a brand, you need to do basically what Apple has done with the iPhone. Everybody has seen the designed in California, made in China deal. And when you control it, when you design it yourself, that's the secret sauce. That's the DNA. That's why an American brand is better than like a Chinese brand.
Right, because of the design, right?
Yep, exactly.
But then you can
go to any factory you want.
just have them make that?
Then it's a cost and quality question, you know?
Right. Right. So you just wait for Apple to design it, and then you go overseas and ask
well, the metaphor there is that like in our case, you know, Josh's brand designs it, and we might go talk to 5 different factories and say, can you make this? You know, you basically give them the formula.
And then they give you a thing.
And then they give you a quote and say, we can do it for this. And yeah.
Right.
Did you, when you first started off when you were young, did you have a financial backer or did you bootstrap it all?
With the current Stigma Cannabis company, self-funded it.
Self-funded. But
what about the product?
Back in the first one?
Before that? Yeah.
And the first one was no backers, but the trade-off there is I've done this twice in my life now. So at age 26, we started up the video game manufacturing company, right?
Accoutrements manufacturing.
5-6 years later, I got recruited to go and be more of a sales guy for the same group that I was with before for Apple retail. And I'd only been doing product my whole life. And this was a good opportunity to not only kind of go more into a sales focused role, but then also get the experience of going to Apple. So I'd fly out to Cupertino, California for a couple of years every couple of months, right? So I got about a dozen trips out there to kind of talk to all their buying team and see what's going on there. So that was a great experience to do that. And then
Did you still have this manufacturing company?
I had to leave it to do this. And so what I did there is the first go around, I went about 6 months without getting paid. This is how you self-fund it. And then the second go around, I went 12 months without getting paid when I set up my own sales rep firm. That's basically what the second job was. The second startup.
Second way you went, learned, and then pulled out and did it yourself.
Yes, exactly.
That's kind of your pattern?
Yep, that is.
Don't hire them.
It's a great pattern.
Unless you want to hire and train your own replacement,
That's right. Yeah.
Exactly. And all that experience, then the third go around, which is Stigma, the current cannabis company, that was self-funded as well, with a lot longer timeline to be able to maybe pull money back out. It was more of a real long story.
Yeah, it's a long.
Yeah, how long have you been at it?
Yeah, so we launched in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I think I'll give a real quick intro into. Well, let me finish up starting up the third company, right? So one of the things I believe is that if you want to continue to grow in your career, in this case, or in your business life, I believe in parlaying, again a casino term, off of what you've already learned, right? Versus I was 5 years I was being a product guy in video games, and now I'm going to go open a restaurant.
Yeah, we call that in because I do recruiting, right? So we call that in my field taking the short bridge. So which short bridge do you want to take? So you find your supply chain would be very interested in your skills, right?
Yeah.
Right? Your competitor would be very interested in your skills. So we call that a short bridge. Where can you find the shortest bridge?
Yeah. And so
is that, I mean, to bring this back to the show, right? Is that a lesson, are there people like maybe myself who don't do that, who are like in one thing and then another and then another, and it confuses people.
Yes,
right?
and don't take any of that. None of that's judgment. That is how I've stacked. I look at it as like stacking my experience on itself, so that myself today is the most.
And I like to look at it from a learning perspective, because I'm not sure that everything that I wouldn't say that I've done everything right nor everything wrong, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always just looking to sort of dig into, like, what can I learn from that?
Well, especially in changing environments, cannabis is a very changing environment, very volatile. IT, technology, I work in technology, that's a very volatile, changing environment. So it's like, if you can continue with that pattern, even if in a job transition, right? Okay, this is where I kind of want to see what I can do in this field in like 5 years, but I can't go straight into this field. Otherwise, I'll be at entry level. So I need to make a short bridge, or I need to make, where can I leverage what I already know and move into that?
Right.
But sometimes sometimes that reveals itself after you make a stupid decision or a great decision, right?
Right.
In that it may not seem connected, and then suddenly you're in it and you see all the freaking connections.
And that can be valuable too.
Exactly.
You can bring different perspectives to things that, if everyone comes through the same channel to get to that job, they've all learned the exact same things and now do all of those things.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where having like a diverse roundtable of, say, board of directors is a valuable thing.
Right.
Like I do believe in that, because multiple perspectives will generally create
let's talk about that. Do you have a Stigma board of directors?
Yes and no.
Or advisors?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's we've kept it a little tight.
Sometimes I just don't need to be challenged, damn it.
Well, let me,
Sometimes I just want the yes people around me.
Well, it's funny you say that, because we have 3 people on our board. It's myself and the other chiefs, the COO and the CFO, Cameron and Tim. And I told Cameron and Tim day one, I was like, hey, we do not need any yes men here. So like, you guys are here to like,
go ahead and tell me when I'm wrong.
This thing. Yes, I'm not Donald Trump. I do not need yes men.
That's right. You don't need to reinforce my stupidity. Thank you.
Exactly.
And
on that note,
I'm sorry, did I say that?
Yeah, no, that's all right. And on that note, I also don't believe in politics in business. And so, Trumpers buy THC too, just like Michael Jordan said, Republicans buy Jordans as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, this is a hot topic these days. Hot topic.
Which is something that I just, it's, I don't want to go back into that, to be honest, because I've separated from it. But it is what it is. It is what it is, and I don't think it's good for anybody's blood pressure to make it your a topic of the day.
Yeah, which we've done a lot of.
Choose your church.
Yeah.
If you're going to get fanatical about something, choose something really amazingly.
Yeah, well, that's
that
why
feeds
I wear
your family and feeds
I see
your
a lot of space.
That's why I wear my
stuff.
UFO shirt.
Yeah.
This is back to my algorithm, right?
That's right.
The summer around 2018, 2019, I do hot yoga too. So one of my tools that I use to be able to do what I do is hot yoga, both for the physical, but probably more importantly for the mental, which is in all your physiology.
Okay, now we need to talk about that. So, why is hot yoga better than regular yoga? Why is it better to be in a hot room?
Well, for me, it's better because I used to be an athlete, and I love sweating. Feels like I actually,
you're doing something.
Yeah, so there's the purge of the physical sweat, which I like from the hot yoga. Also, to me, it allows, I think it allows maybe a little bit quicker physically getting into your body a little bit deeper, just because of the physical.
Well, I've heard too, it's like that you get even more exhausted in the hot room, and it's like you really have to let go of all your shit.
Yeah. Well, that's I mean, you have to breathe through that class.
You have to breathe through the class.
Yeah.
Like,
how hot is hot yoga?
Give or take 100.
Yeah, it's like you walk in, you're sweating. I did it
not
one time.
sauna. I mean, everyone's into sauna too. So, but sauna's the next level.
Saunas are more, really good saunas like 160, 170 degrees. Then the cold plunge.
Yeah, but I mean, any yoga is good.
Did you think, thinking back to your 18-year-old football self, did you say, I can't wait for, 20 years from now when I can be a hot yoga guy?
I would have never thought that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Living up there in Bismarck, like hot yoga.
Hot yoga is my future, man.
No,
three other guys are beating you up. Like, did you just think about hot yoga?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. That's where that background is super helpful. I joke, like in high school, we'd hang out, we were the athletes or whatever, but we'd hang out with, like, we called them loads. But I learned that nobody else had this term, but backlot, the outsiders, the leather jacket smoking cigarettes, listening to Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin in high school. We called them loads, but we'd hang out with those guys. Yeah, we'd hang out with those guys, and we'd hang out with
I don't know that
everybody. And so having that diversity of, like, we had, all kinds, everybody.
Yeah.
Again, Bismarck's not a super diverse space, but we had.
I mean, I grew up in Elk River. That was you could find that community too. You could hang out with just the sports dudes, which wasn't me. The jocks or the athletes, or there were people who kind of crossed over to multiple different.
Yeah, we were crossovers.
Yeah, I can tell that about you.
What do you think you learned that serves you now from being? Because I asked this from pure curiosity for me because, my sport was golf. And I self-taught. I was a natural. I played varsity golf at Hill Marie for 4 years in high school.
I'm gonna have to have you talk to my daughters.
Okay, and it was very natural for me. I practiced because I had to, but I just was naturally good, right? So I didn't have the athletic, and I've heard this so much. I mean, there are companies in this town that only will hire athletes because of some secret sauce of self-discipline. I don't know, like you are willing to push yourself harder than other people. What do you think it is?
Yeah, I think there's not one silver bullet to the answer, but I do think that it's self-discipline's a thing. I think there's accountability. So I learned these things at UPS too. When I was a Gopher, I worked through the UPS's program to get my scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so they preached accountability, very hard. So accountability is a big thing. I think self-purpose and self-drive is kind of one and the same there a little bit, meaning if you're let's say varsity high school athlete, which is as far as I got because I couldn't do more than that, but just by default, if you're like an employer right now, by default, this person's already probably proven that they're able to do, and then fill in these blanks that you're talking about, which is get the practices on time. Timeliness is just a very basic thing, right? So it's really all these same fundamentals of life that you could hear for Tony Robbins talk about or whatever, but you can just learn them by participating in I know golf's not this way, but it's a team, but like team sports is also like one level up from an individual sport too, because then you also have to learn compromise. And you have to understand maybe in a real world example how to delegate. Like I got to rely on that guy on my team to do the right thing because I'm doing this thing.
Lead,
you know what I mean?
all these things. Yeah.
No, golf, you don't learn that stuff in golf.
Yeah. So
We're
I think
all
it's
competitors in golf.
Yeah, individual competitors.
You don't learn that collaboration.
I would argue
stuff.
probably better communication. Probably better listeners.
Well, I think you took on some heavier responsibilities than others.
You did, and you had to, you had to.
I'm watching it play out with my son. I mean, my eldest boy
he's amazing.
Is playing varsity baseball.
And, perfect. Yeah.
And I think were it not for varsity baseball, he wouldn't have started working out 2.5 years ago or whatever, right? He wanted to play and get better, so he's working out constantly. Well, what does that mean? That means he's up. A kid who would rather sleep until 5 minutes before he has to get off to school because that's what everyone wants to do. Yeah. He's up 2 hours before he goes to school so he can hit the gym because he knows he's got to work that night and he's got practice that night and he's not going to be able to get to the gym, so he does it in the morning.
Yep.
And then he's dragging my 15-year-old along, which is great. He's not a sports guy at all. He played tennis this year, but as a result of all this, now he's stretching and doing all of these other things that'll lead into the hot yoga someday.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. So
your future is hot yoga.
I mean, well, it's different. Yeah. That versus non-athletes. I get it. It doesn't mean if you're not an athlete that you can't possess a lot of those same skills. But this is one of the training grounds for him. Yeah. That I understand.
I don't possess a lot of those skills. That's why I ask, I really don't. I mean, individual success has been really driven into me, right?
I'm waking up right now.
And so I've been learning collaboration and co-working and, and leaning on other people and,
Look at us. I was golf, cross-country running and tennis, all individual sports. No wonder I don't work well with other people. I never learned it. I mean, I got out of football.
Those are like the whitest sports of all time, too, by the way.
Yeah,
they are. Well, they are, or
but
they used to be.
Lifelong, they're also lifelong sports, which is the best part about it. I'll never forget my first grade gym teacher. Golf and tennis, Josh.
Yeah.
Play them till you're old or something, right?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
that's
really,
true.
yeah. That's
For
what
me, it was
my dad said.
And golf is actually that's what I do now at age 44.
For me, it was more or less because, like, I tried playing football and I tried playing baseball, and I liked them both, but I moved around a lot. And if you didn't know the right people to get, like, if you weren't good enough to be, or in that clique, that crowd, like when I moved to Elk River, you didn't play baseball or football unless you knew Trig Sarsland and his dad. Like you had to be part of that community or you didn't get to play.
Yeah.
But anywhere I moved to, I could join the tennis team or I could join the cross country team, you know, because they don't care.
Yeah, yeah.
Take as many kids as they
They'll
can.
take everybody.
Oh, where are we with time?
We should probably take a break, yeah.
Let's take a break. And afterwards, I kind of want to know why cannabis when we get
Yeah.
back.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
I
like
would definitely have a lot of questions
Yeah,
about
I mean,
the
I just
cannabis.
like, you know, there's like, especially for you, someone who's a successful entrepreneur in many areas, like to choose something which I would kind of describe as one of the risky areas. So, yeah,
Well, we'll find out.
we'll be back.
We'll find out how risky it is, too.
Yeah, that's
in the
right.
future.